Hey, 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 kindergarten. It's the one, the only Miss Barge here to bring you your literature story for today. So make sure you have a nice, cozy, comfy spot. And I hope you remember the favorite character that I told you I was going to read you a book from each week. See if you can remember it. Tap that brain. Who was the character that was in my story last week? Mason, Levi, Logan. How did you remember? You're right. It's Curious George. So today for literature, I bring you Curious George's First Day of School. Curious George's First Day of School is the title, the big words on the front cover that tell you the name of the book. And right here on this spine, it also says the name of the book, the title's right here. And that's actually how I found it on the shelf at the library. I borrowed this book from the library to read to you. So let's see what happens. Looks like maybe Curious George is going to be a superstar at school. Maybe he'll get a star reward for doing something good. That's my prediction because I see a star around his neck. And I know when I was in school, if the teacher gave me a star, it means I did something good, which kind of makes me think, boys and girls, Curious George usually gets himself into some naughty trouble. So I'll have to figure out if he gets a star or not. Curious George's first day of school. The man in the yellow hat looks like Curious George is in a hurry with maybe his lunchbox right there to get to school. And some of you might be doing that next week. We look forward to seeing some of you in person at the building, and the rest of you will see online. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George was so excited. He could barely eat his breakfast. You have a big day ahead of you, George, said his friend, the man with the yellow hat. Yep, that's right, Riley. Curious George is excited because he gets to go to school just like you. It was a big day for George. It was the first day of school, and he had been invited to be a special helper. I wonder what he gets to do as a special helper. Maybe he gets to unmute and say the pledge like some of my friends get to do. Let's see. George and his friend walked together to the schoolyard. Some of the children were nervous, but George could not wait for all the fun to begin. In the classroom, George's friend introduced him to Mr. Apple. I think Mr. Apple is probably his teacher. Thank you for inviting George to school today, said the man with a yellow hat to the teacher. Then he waved goodbye and said, have a good day, George. I'll be back to pick you up after school. George didn't even cry. Oh, they have the alphabet in their school just like us. And there's a letter A that we learned last week. Letter A, ah. The children were so excited to have a monkey in their class. George is going to be our special helper, Mr. Apple told them. Oh, look at that, boys and girls. There is the illustration, the picture from the front cover. He is getting a star necklace for being a helper. So he didn't do anything extra special. That just means he is the helper today. That is why Mr. Apple put that necklace on him. So my prediction was actually wrong from the front cover, and that's okay. And what a helper he was. At story time, George helped hold the book. Look how he's holding that book, boys and girls, with his feet and his hands. I don't think that's how we hold a book. At math time, the children could count on George. Look what they're counting. Fingers and toes. That's silly. Looks like George is laughing. Maybe they're tickling his toes. And at recess, George made sure everyone had a ball. So he's throwing the balls and sharing with all of his classmates. That's pretty respectful. And he made sure everyone had a well-balanced snack. And boys and girls, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't want to balance lunch boxes and food on my hand. That's not very safe with the food. It could make a big mess. After lunch, Mr. Apple got out paints and brushes. George saw red and yellow and blue paint. 3 colors were not very many. George was curious. Could he make more colors? Stop and think, boys and girls. What do you think is going to happen next in the story? He saw blue and yellow and red paints. And he says, that's not enough colors. Can I make more? I'm going to make a prediction. Prediction. What will happen next? I think that George is going to try to mix the colors because he wants to know if he can make more colors. He's going to mix them together. And what I know, my prior knowledge from the other Curious George books, is that when Curious George is curious, he does things and it tends to make a mess. And then he gets in trouble. So I predict George is going to mix the paints to make new colors. And when he mixes the paints, he's going to make a big mess. And he's going to get in trouble. That's what you were thinking? That's what you were thinking, Brayden. We have the same prediction. First, George mixed red and blue to make purple. So I was right. He's mixing the paints. Next, George mixed red and yellow to make orange. Uh-oh, look at the ground, boys and girls. Looks like paint is getting everywhere. Then George mixed yellow and blue to make green. That's my favorite color. And finally, George mixed, oh no, boys and girls, he mixed all the colors to make rainbow. I predict he's going to make a rainbow because rainbows are made of lots of colors. Oh, he made a big, giant mess. The children thought the mess was funny and they all laughed. But his teacher did not think it was funny. Oh dear, he said. We are going to need something to clean this up right now. Everyone sit down quietly while I go look. I would have to think just like Mr. Apple. If you guys did this in my classroom or in Mr. Bennett or Miss Reaver or Miss Opdyke's classroom, I would not be happy. We need to take pride in our environment. And making a mess like this is not taking pride. I predict that Curious George is going to need to try to help clean this up. Because when I make a mess, I have to help clean it up. So I predict Curious George will have to help clean up this mess. Because when you make a mess, it's your job to clean it up. George did not mean to make such a mess. And he certainly did not want to sit quiet in his chair at school. He wanted to help. It was his job, after all. He made the mess. Hey, I said that. George had an idea. Boys and girls, he's leaving the classroom, and I don't think he asked his teacher. I wonder where he's going. Anyone have any guesses where he's going? Maybe he's trying to go get some paper towels, some napkins, washcloth, soap, maybe some Clorox wipes to clean up this mess. I predict he's going to go find something to clean it up because when I have a mess, I need something to clean it up. In the hallway, George found a closet. In the closet, he found a bucket. In the bucket, he found just what he needed. What do you guys think's in the bucket? What'd you say, Christian? Bella, what'd you say? Think it's a washcloth? Okay. Ooh, you think it's a mop, Christian? When I mop at home, I do put the mop in a bucket filled with water to clean the floors. And I do also use a washcloth on my floors to clean them sometimes. I see some water in that bucket, but I can't see anything else. Let's see what's in there. It's a mop. You were right, Christian. Oh, it looks like he's standing on top of the bucket and the bucket has wheels. And I'm predicting this bucket might spill over and he's going to make an even bigger mess when he's supposed to be cleaning up. George was on his way back to the classroom when he heard somebody yell, "Stop! Stop! What are you doing with my mop?" The janitor ran after George. "Stop! Stop running in the halls! No running in the halls!" The principal ran after the janitor. We have some new characters. We have the janitor, we have the principal. Of course, we still have Curious George. But George was going too fast to stop. He grabbed the doorway and swung inside. I think that water's going to spill. Splosh. The bucket tipped. The mop dropped, and George slid across the floor. Ay, 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 ay. Now the mess was even bigger. That was my prediction. I had a correct prediction. Mr. Apple looked surprised. The principal frowned. Make a frowny face. That's what your family might do if you make a mess like that. The janitor just shook his head. And George, poor George, he felt terrible. Maybe he was not such a good helper after all. Boys and girls, Curious George is feeling defeated. He's feeling like he's not good enough. He made a mess. He knows he made a mess with the paint. He knows his teacher was upset. He went to go find a bucket to try to clean it up. Then he was going too fast in the hallway, grabbed the doorway, and out spilled all the water. He didn't mean to do it, but he created an even bigger mess, and everybody around him is upset. I wonder what they could do to take care of this problem. What's going to happen next? Let's read to find out. The children, the students in George's class felt terrible too. They did not like to see George looking sad. They thought he was a great helper all day before the mess. Now they decided they wanted to help him. Look at the boys and girls. Someone's got a sponge, another sponge, the mop, sponges on his feet. So the children all lent a hand to help clean up the mess, and some feet, because they're using their feet to clean up too. Boys and girls, this is making me think about when we talked about using teamwork and stronger together. They are working stronger together as a whole class, as a whole school family to help George. George is their friend. They love him and care about him and want him to feel better. So they're all working together to make that happen. That makes my heart happy. How about yours? And before anyone knew it, the mess was gone. The little monkey sure is helpful, said the janitor. He cleaned up his mess. It looks like Mr. Apple has a whole class full of helpers now, the principal said. Look, the principal turned her frown upside down. She's smiling now. The janitor's smiling, and Mr. Apple is smiling. And look at all the children. All the students and George are even smiling. And it looks like this little girl is giving George his star helper necklace back. At the end of the day, when George's friends arrived to pick him up, Mr. Apple said, "Thank you for all your help, George. We hope you will come back and help us again soon." The children cheered, and they hoped George would come again too. Sorry about that, boys and girls. Look, at the end of the story, they were all happy, and they thanked George for being the helper. George waved goodbye to all his new friends at school, and what a great day it had been. He could not wait to come back to school the next day. The end. Boys and girls, that book taught me a couple things. That book with Curious George today, my favorite character, taught me about taking responsibility and trying to clean up my own mess, but maybe needing a little bit of help, maybe asking an adult for some help when you have a big, big mess like that. And then it also taught me about teamwork, about being stronger together, and we're all in this together. Any problem you have, we can all work together to solve it. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that story and liked seeing my friend George again. I hope you have a great day. Enjoy special areas, and don't forget to meet your teacher back live at 2:45 for some closure. Bye, boys and girls. Love you.